Welcome, dear readers, to Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read. My name is Kaki.
And I'm Kay. And remember, we only judge a book by its cover.
The remembering, that's the hard part these days. Because as I recall, and by recall, I mean listening back to our entire back catalogue several times, you found the source of the mysterious red ink that has been falling from the ceiling of your magical library, where we find ourselves amidst the... And which continually erases my memory every time that I get in contact with it. And you found the still that the funky little raccoons
were using.
Are somehow part of our library. Yeah. And you shut that down. I don't think that was it, because it's still happening.
Oh, dear. I told you to keep an eye out on the floor for any drips that have come down from the ceiling. Have you been doing that?
How would I know?
Oh, because you keep forgetting.
Correct. This makes reverse engineering it very difficult. I've run out of space to write on myself.
Okay.
But I've also noticed that the red ink tends to erase other inks. So when I write notes on anything else...
it does have that problem, yes. I've been thinking about marketing as a tattoo removal service, but it's not really gotten anywhere.
See, at least it hasn't done that. As long as I keep my sleeves covered, I can still read. So we can still do the podcast, because I can remember the script, so I can remember. Let me see it down here.
Can still read our books and do the reviews.
CoverMyAsscast.com and at CoverMyAsscast. I should have written that somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah. So all of that's there. So I'm feeling positive.
Oh, good.
Despite, I've got to say, this worryingly vulnerable position that I'm in, because I just never know when I'm going to have my old memory erased.
I can leave you a bag of...
Bag? That'll help.
I was going to say a bag of...
I can just stuff a bag over my head.
Yes, that could work.
Have you advised me to do that before?
No, I haven't.
It's like, hey, Kaki, have you ever thought of sticking your head in a bag?
No. I mean, I wouldn't say that. That'd be almost like calling someone Coyote Ugly.
I don't know what that... Coyotes are handsome creatures.
They are. Coyote Uglies, it refers to the idea that coyotes and many other critters are known to gnaw their own leg off if they're caught in a trap.
Okay.
The concept of Coyote Ugly is if you've had a bit of a drunken stupor night and you wake up next to a bed partner and they're asleep on your arm and they are so ugly that you gnaw your own arm off so you can get out of bed without having to wake them up and get out of the... So that's what Coyote Ugly means.
Understood. At least you didn't suggest I wear two bags, because that would be more in line with what you just told me.
Double bagging, yes, and also no tea bagging. But to come to...
What kind of a library is this?
Well, you're not supposed to dunk your tea bag. That's just bad tea protocol. Yes.
Yeah.
What I was going to offer you was a bag of fun-sized Kit Kats, so you could maybe bribe Tristan to perform a little task to help you out.
Now, I have a question about what does fun size mean? Are they extra big
they're
or
small,
extra small?
They're small. I know.
So they are,
that's what they call them. It's fun sizes. This one, it's like Halloween season's coming up.
Oh, that is true.
So,
or perhaps it is even already...
It might have just been on sale.
Oh, I don't know.
It's around Halloween season, so, fun-sized bags of, for trick-and-treating bags of candy are available everywhere. So I think they'd probably be amenable to being bribed by you, or at least goods may exchange for services or something.
See, if they're the ones who are actually responsible for it, because this is my worry. It sounded like you had this in the bag of fun-sized Kit Kats, as the expression goes. But what if they're not responsible for the drippings of...
No, but they might still be able to help you out. Maybe put up little warning signs, or...
Maybe they wield other inks. I don't know. Hey, have we ever gotten into this? Because you've told me to stay away from the red ink, because it's memory erasure and apparently world-dominating schemes that this ink seems to have as it seeps out of the grimoire cage. But what about the other inks? Have we really gotten into that?
No, there's a big variety of them.
Exactly.
Some of them are more useful than others.
Well, let's talk about some of the useful ones. Let's get into the ink lore.
Oh, dear. There's the archival library standard ink, which is just black or blue usually, but it's...
Is that India ink?
India ink is basically just finely ground carbon in alcohol, if I'm not mistaken, or at least some solvent. So that's, it has a good purpose because it doesn't fade.
Because the actual carbon is left behind as a deposit.
So it has
That's clever.
It has a disadvantage that it doesn't always permeate into the paper as well, especially if you're using stuff like vellum and things like that, where you're writing on the skin surface, rather than it actually drawing into the paper.
Into the fiber, right.
So there's the turquoise ink, which is... Let's not discuss that one here.
I like how you said it.
Yeah, let's not discuss that one here. That one's...
is that for the 18-plus After Dark version of this podcast that has been coming out continuously for 95 episodes?
Would it be more suitable for... Yes.
Shh. Oh, don't tell the listeners that we have a secret, sexy podcast that they can't listen to.
Where we only review Chuck Tingle books.
Didn't we promise to do that last time?
I don't think so. We've never not reviewed the book that we did.
Oh dear, have you been hit by the ink?
Oh, not that I'm aware of.
That's the first sign.
Oh shit! Right.
Okay, we should probably review this book before we forget what we're here to do. So, what do we have in store for our readers this week?
Ah, yes. This book is edited by Esther Friesner.
Yes.
So I don't think she actually wrote it, but she edited it.
Yes, and she's one of our favorites. Like, her work has been featured on the show before. I think it was Chicks and Chained Males.
Yes, that's probably the one.
In episode 31. And like, all of her oeuvre is just fantastic. There's these beautiful, like, sexy fantasy romps that, with the most glorious covers, with delightfully endowed young men and women and people. And
yes.
Fantastic.
Usually having a great old time.
Yeah.
As we see here, in the book's title is Fangs for the Mammaries.
Fangs for the Mammaries.
Yes.
Like, this is just. I wonder if she sells these books to her publisher just based on the title. Because if
sounds reasonable.
A publisher worth their salt would certainly buy these books instantly before any story has been written. Just these titles are so great.
So what we see here is a buxom vampiress, vampire really, just rising up out of her coffin. And the thing that jumps out to me immediately, it's not just how did it say it politely, the bushel of wood in front of the cabin.
Yeah.
But the fact that she's wearing a crucifix.
I noticed that.
Yes.
She's clearly drawing attention to her buxom cleavage.
Yes, which goes all the way down to her belly button.
Yes, she's got a very revealing corset that I thought was really quite cunning. A beautiful gown, also split way down the middle just to show off the...
gown? It's like barely hot pants. So she's wearing a cape and
that's right.
And some sleeved thing with very goth sleeves.
Well, at the time, they were just the fashion, right? Like, the goth is a sort of a revival.
Well,
like
with the frayed edges and everything.
Oh, okay. Maybe
she's got a
chic derelict.
Matching choker to keep her cloak shut and matching the belt buckle.
Ah, yeah.
Which is a very high belt buckle. It's like waist belt.
Until about the 20th century, that was the style. Like pants cinched around the waist, because that's where you're narrowest. Like, that sort of
it does make sense,
is a really good place to cinch.
Long black hair, ruby lips. Got a bit of an addiction to purple eyeshadow, I noticed.
Yes, there's that sort of confrontational, welcome to my parlor look that she's got. And the crucifix in between the twins. Now, that was such a bold choice.
Yes.
Because I guess it exemplifies some aspects of her character that we'll get to and that I'm very excited to explore with you.
Love the cover. Let's get on with the book. It's published by Bain again, which we seem to do a lot of books published by Bain.
They are the bane of our existence.
Well, and the fruit of their labors or something along those lines.
The fruit of their loins, yeah.
Yes, the lady on the front cover, we will soon learn, is a young woman by the name of Bambirella.
Yes.
Who is...
what a charming name.
Who is the daughter of Duke Ivan Ivanovich Ivanov the fourth, sorry.
Yes, the son of Liv, Ivanovich, also the Iv, the fourth.
The fourth, yes. There you go. And she is basically in her father's castle and being told that she is going to meet one of her suitors. She's a young lady of somewhere in the teenagers, which at the time would be considered marrying age.
18 is about spinsterhood in the century in which this takes place, and she's Ivan's only daughter and therefore the apple of his eye, but also the instrument of his future, of his legacy.
Yes.
Marrying her off to the appropriate suitor is a huge responsibility.
So,
as father.
the first young man who is ushered into the castle is a young man by the name of Ivan Amandich. Amandich, I think you would pronounce this.
Just to be clear, it was Ivan Amandich and Ivan Amandich.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. No, I've got it.
So, like, she clearly
such a good book already.
Clearly chosen based on the first name and like keeping up the family and the family naming tradition.
Oh yeah.
But I'm afraid that the surname is a bit more of a giveaway to his person and character, because he's like him and Bambirella don't really click it off.
No, it seems like he's much more interested in talking to her dad and keep tittering at his little jokes and retiring back to the boudoir. It's almost as if wanting to meet his buxom daughter was a pretext to some other interest.
Yes,
that
I think getting to know the Duke himself a little bit better. And I think the fact that we see him a few times later in the first few chapters of the book suggests that he's gotten a position at court. And
I think we all know which position he got.
Yes.
In the words of so many archaeologists, when they encounter like Greek pottery with butt fucking, they appear to be very good friends.
That's it, yes. I heard about archaeologist party the other day. They'd found an old house and there was a skeleton had been dug up.
Oh, fun.
But they were missing one part of the leg bone and they were desperately trying to find it. So it was quite a shindig.
God. Yeah, I'm sure that was the theme of the party.
Yes.
Yes. We'll work on it.
The next young man to get this opportunity to woe young Bambirella is a young man then by the name of Bram Stoker, who also doesn't turn out to be particularly well interested in Bambirella.
Yeah. Although they get on just fine. They're quite happy to talk about the latest plays that they've seen. He's not a very handy dude. He seems...
But not to her.
Yeah, I liked how he was a sort of a free thinker and an independent spirit. Like he doesn't reach for other people to satisfy needs that he's perfectly capable of fulfilling himself.
He's like a very independent young man, maybe a little bit too independent for the Duke's taste, and especially for Bambirella's taste.
And young Ivan Amandich was,
Him and the Duke are like fast friends by now.
They appear to be very good friends. Yeah, so she's not doing... That's 2 for 2. She's not doing on the suitors.
So she decides to go talk to her lady-in-waiting and also her young best friend.
Yes.
A young lass from the village by the name of Alotta Horgasm.
Yes. She's the daughter of the local wise woman. She has a lot of wisdom to impart. She's pejoratively called the hag, as medicine women frequently were. But, of course, because of the status that she's endured, she's a bit of a hag queen.
Sorry, don't do that when I'm swallowing.
Okay. If I had a penny.
I mean, she is very much...
We are such very good friends.
They go sneaking out, as young women are wont to do. They sneak out from under their parents' attention and basically going out in the town and being a little bit adventurous and basically getting her first proper introduction to the outside world, which hasn't been carefully curated by her father.
Yes.
You know, young girls out in the local taverns, and they manage to... For some reason, she's not recognized by any of the locals as being the daughter of the Duke.
I guess because she's been kept...
Most people won't have actually seen her other than standing on a balcony and waving.
Sort of waving. Yeah. Hello, citizens. Hello.
Yes. And they in the pub, they run into a man by the name of Dr. Heavensing, who is...
Dr. Heavensing.
Dr. Van Heavensing.
Oh, that's right. And he goes, Heaven-o!
Heaven-o, yes, there you go.
Yes. Do you need any heaven?
Oh. And who basically is wandering adventurer or a person of unclear means who is making their way across the country.
Seeking adventure, and she is immediately captivated by the dashing independence and capability of this gentleman, and she wants to help, or I'm sorry, heaven him in his various quests and learn from him to become an adventuress in her own right.
First, she goes back to the castle, but when the next day her father has yet another suitor lined up for her, an Englishman by the name of John Bates, who insists that he be referred to as Master Bates.
I saw that coming.
Yeah.
You can tell how these things are going to go.
She decides to make a run for it. Yes.
Yeah. Since while her dad is a very supportive gentleman, he's just not going to understand that she wants to be her own woman and discover the world.
And she figures, have fun with young Ivan Amandich.
Yes, that's what I'm going to be.
And she decides to just pick up her stuff and get family jewels. And I'm talking about the choker and...
yes, of course, her inheritance.
And make off with her young friend, Alotta.
Yes, and I like that at this point the book skips some time. It kicks into high gear. We see some vignettes of their various adventures as she becomes a successful adventuress. Mm. So her and Alotta are traveling through Europe, and they sort of adapt the formula that they learned from Professor Van Heavensing, because where he goes around exploring ancient ruins and retrieving artifacts of mystical and historical importance,
sometimes known as grave robbery and church looting, but it depends on whom you ask. Yeah.
So that's the part that they disagree with. So they find that they can embark on a life of similar adventure that is much more responsible and wholesome, breaking into these jealously guarded, almost supernatural repositories of incredible value to rescue these artifacts and bring them to an audience that will appreciate them so they can be edified.
Yes.
So we see them breaking into a number of European museums to rescue the artifacts that have made their way there from various places.
As they want to do, yes.
Yeah. So
sometimes legally bought from someone who wasn't legally selling them, but it was we bought them fair and square. It's not really our problem that the person who was selling them didn't have any right or title to them, but...
And they were wonderful adventures as they cat burgle the British Museum to rescue the Benin bronzes and return them back to historians of the cultures to whose benefit they can be, which was like, it's Indiana Jones turned on its head, because you think about it sometimes, like the opening scene of Indiana Jones breaking into that temple.
Oh, yes.
Breaking into a temple. The temple itself is of enormous cultural and historical value.
Yes.
Like all these traps.
And it was clearly still in use by the locals, or at least still...
built with like technology that can last centuries and still like a spring load that will still work centuries later. Is just
amazing,
extraordinary.
Yeah. The big rolling stones, which show remarkable engineering feats.
Of course, the challenges that Bambirella and Alotta face as they have to overcome the security systems of these museums is no less impressive.
Locks and stuff. There were no secret laser beams, and I don't believe the British Museum ever employed pit traps or big rolling
or pressure
boulders.
Sensors.
Yes.
Well, but I think that Esther Friesner actually took some creative liberties with the kind of paranoid security that they had.
And there was some like spiky fences and dogs and stuff like that to deal with.
Until she finds her way, and this is where the story picks up again, she finds her way to one of the most jealously guarded repositories of artifacts, a very sinister land called Pennsylvania,
yes,
where there are rumors of a powerful person living in there, someone who is responsible for the spread of what is called alternative doctrine.
Oh dear, yes.
His symbol is a hanged vulpine. Like his symbol is the fox noose.
Oh, yes.
Where she breaks into the home of Count Murdocula.
Oh yes, that's a scary man. That like he's amassed a great amount of wealth and he's using it to run political influence, basically.
Yes, exactly, through the alternative doctrine, which is spread by his servants Alex Jones and his son Hannity. Yeah. But also she discovers through mass telepathy. This is why he has so much more reach than a mere peddler of falsehoods ought to.
He can just like broadcast his, what's the opposite of benign?
Malignant.
Malignant, yes. His malignant messages of...
do more M's.
Yeah, I was trying to...
Okay, no, I got you back. Malignant messages of...
masterful mischief and misdirection.
Oh, yeah, very good. Masterfully done. Oh, shit, you did that one already.
Yes, out to the general public, out to the general populace, and basically cementing himself into power by broadcasting hate and dissent between the various groups of his listeners.
Yes, and Bambirella and Alotta encounter this, and what are we to do against a power that great? Considering the experience that they've had so far, they realize that this cannot be a mere human power. This cannot be mere wealth that's doing it. He must have some artifact that is endowing him with the ability to project this mass telepathy, and they have to relieve him from it. Now, fortunately, they are two excellent thieves, and they're in perfect position to do this. So off they set, well prepared with their crossbows and their rappels and their grappling hooks and everything, and they break into Count Murdocula's stronghold in the Apathian Mountains.
Yes,
that's
the mountains of Apathos. Yes,
the one where they make short work of his henchmen, Alex Jones and Sean Hannity, quickly fall beneath their knives,
and they managed to catch Count Murdocula just as he is lying himself down for his repose.
Exactly, because they realize it's not merely a trinket that he has that they can relieve him of. He is himself a vampire.
One of great age and power.
Yeah. And so they must relieve him of that power. Now, how do they do that?
Pitched battle, where they fight the vampire, and unfortunately, poor Alotta loses her life during this fight as a great sacrifice to
give Bambirella
the opportunity to kill Murdocula, and in doing so, actually steal his power. Apparently, the way to become one of these creatures is not just to be bit by one and become its servant, but also to kill it and thereby inadvertently steal its power.
Yes. Now, I can imagine why when vampire lore was being written and vampires were being romanticized, this part of apparently vampire lore or vampire reality was kind of left out because, I can imagine that...
you really don't want that to become public knowledge.
Count Murdocula had that removed from all of the vampire fiction.
He kept it out of the alternate doctrine. Yes.
Yes, exactly. And overwhelmed by the power flooding into her, she falls into a torpor, sealed in the crumbling wreck of his once stronghold.
Yes. This is roughly halfway through the book, and there's a jump to current day times.
Yes, I was so excited about this because I remember the first time that I saw Interview with the Vampire. I hadn't even read the book, but just the idea of these immortals really solidified by the fact that you had these Elizabethan and Victorian immortals, and you get their whole life story, and then they're still alive in the 80s.
Yeah.
Or just awakening, as happened to Lestat, I think his name was.
One of them, yes.
Tom Cruise,
yes.
the sexy one.
Was he Lestat? I don't know which one was Lestat, but yes.
Oh, it was the pale one with the fangs and the sort of sexy, morbid attitude. That's the one.
They touch on that in True Blood as well, when they show a lot of the characters how they basically around the time when they became a vampire and how that shaped and influenced them and the person, how they became that. But there's also scenes where there's flashbacks to back in the 40s or in the 60s or whatever it was that they were doing back then, and just to show how these same characters lived through those times.
I remember there was a scene in Buffy the Vampire Slayer season 2 where after the death of the Master, who's the big bad in season 1, we see his acolyte come to power and hold a speech that we will hold the greatest reign of terror since the crucifixion, and I should know because I was there. Yeah. And then fucking Spike walks in and he's the sort of blonde-haired rockabilly motherfucker. Yeah. And he goes, okay, if every vampire who claims to be at the crucifixion was there, it would have been busier than Woodstock. Now, I was there at Woodstock, and then he stakes him, and that's such a
nice. So back to the modern day and age when a new motorway is being planned through the Apathian Mountains. Yes.
Yes.
And in doing so, when they're digging the fundaments for a new bridge, they found in the old ruins of Mordocula's residence, which is completely fallen into disrepair and is now being demolished. They come across the coffin in which Bambirella lies sleeping.
Where she's been in a centuries-long torpor. Her power is growing within her ample breast.
Yes, so the coffin gets opened by a poor hapless construction worker who immediately gets grabbed, drunk dry, and it's a bit of a gruesome. It's a scene which we wouldn't really expect from Bambirella, but it's basically the nature that she's not been aware of. Now kicking in. She's been in torpor for all these times, and her body needs to feed, her body needs to eat. And she's immediately shocked by what she's done, and stumbles out into her, basically expects that for her only a few minutes have passed, or she doesn't know, she just knows she passed out. And
she's still mourning for Alotta and looking for her body to form
but there's the house is gone, and she wonders what this weird thing is, and she just wanders into the nearest town, and her archaic speech patterns are a little bit weird.
I did like that,
but her features managed to draw plenty of attraction, especially when she's this happened late in the evening. It was in the later part of the season, so it was already going dark. So she stumbles into one of the local watering hole just around dinner time. So there's plenty of men who are there sitting appreciative of what they see. There's a bit of an altercation with the locals, let's say, who seem to think that feasting their eyes is not the only thing that they are entitled to, and gets smacked with a quick and a rapid smackdown by Bambirella.
Yeah, this is her discovering her new endowments. She has abilities that she didn't know about, that she summons almost instinctually, owing to her vampire nature. The ability to enthrall people. She has by the same mechanism that allowed Count Mordocula to practice mass telepathy. She can influence a single individual to calm and to listen to her
and do her bidding, at least not in a directly "you will now do this," but act according to her interests and wishes.
And she realizes, there's certainly a metaphor there for a young woman realizing that the influence that she can wield over the world when she is...
And especially over young men, although more and more also over young women.
Yeah, let's not underestimate that. I do recall that my brother once remarked that when he was a student, he bussed tables at a gay bar for money during the summer, and then he realized that he got better tips if he opened a few more buttons on his shirt. Yeah. So I'm sure that it works for Bambirella as well.
Yes, it's not like she has any buttons to open, or if there's
kind of run out.
If there's any more room for her to open up,
eventually you just max out, and then it stops becoming cleavage and becomes cleavism. I guess
once you have those open face jackets, which is never meet. So I guess that's ultimate cleavage.
Is that just the jackets have buttons and you don't have to seal them, right? Or
right, but you have a jacket which is cut in such a way that it can't actually close.
Oh, that it can't possibly. Yes. Yeah,
I don't know what they're called.
I guess a cape. At that point?
Well, does cape have sleeves?
Good point. All right, let's get into this. What are the different forms of attire that you can wear that you can't shut?
I would call it
chaps. Chaps is one
true,
that you can't close.
Yes.
All right, what else we got? So it's
scarves.
chest chaps, scarves. Okay. We're probably going to get some tweets from mathematicians who say that scars are not by definition.
Yes, scarves are non-topological. They're topologically uniform. They don't contain a hole, and at least chaps contain holes.
Okay. Is that yes? When I'm thinking about it, yes. They contain several, in fact.
Yes, 2.
3, one for each leg and one for the torso.
Well, it's a belt, so that technically opens. So.
Okay. Yes. You're right.
Anyway, Bambirella moves out of the little town and goes into the big wild world, where she soon discovers basically the 21st century.
Yeah.
And she has to figure out how things work, what they do for money. She uses a little bit of her old skills at first, but also now the new ones. She finds that she has, as a new vampire, she has become very proficient in the art of feng shui.
Yes. It's basically pushing other people's furniture around and then charging for it.
That's it, yeah, exactly. And
I don't mean to be mean about Feng Shui. I'm sure that it's a great art and obviously very supportive.
Yes. After what she learns that she can do to influence people's mental state, let's call it.
Yes.
She starts going into a advisory position. She learns about the way the modern media works. There's the internet. And soon she has a YouTube channel called Bambirella's Come As You Are.
Yes.
Advising people on sexual help, interest, and relationship issues.
I love that so much because while she has all the endowments in order to produce content that captivates the masses through it. Yes, it's very eye-catching, and she can certainly look you in the eye and say, "See me." But yeah, like the first Bambiral video.
Oh yes, goes out
that summoned millions and millions to Bambirella's Come As You Are.
Yep.
Is about simple sexual health. Is about hygiene and the role of responsible, safe sex, and how cool it is, and how much fun it can be to be consenting together, and how hot foreplay can be,
and how much one should be oneself and accept that
body positivity,
and all sorts of that.
Now, I did wonder if there was a little bit like. Body positivity, that does seem like something that vampires would be into. A fuller figured person has more blood in their body,
I suppose
so
that
maybe
makes sense.
we don't really see her drain many people. I'm sure she found another source.
Yes, I mean, thanks for the Mammaries, and this. And she starts the pleasure activism movement.
Yes, I liked that. Which gets her invited to like larger queer pride celebrations throughout the world. Now, that one is a little bit difficult for her because they tend to be like daytime events.
Right.
Which is tricky for a vampire. But she soon realizes that the only sensitivity that she really has that is super deadly, and it was to Count Murdocula, is direct sunlight. Indirect sunlight, for example, through a prism, is not such a problem.
No.
And what you get when you run sunlight through a prism, you get a rainbow, which suits very well. So she's got all of these like prism, like umbrellas, and just casts herself into rainbows all the time. Although that does come up in a video that she releases on YouTube called Unjustly Imprisoned.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Which she presents on the Connie Lingus talk show.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's not as scientifically accurate as Bambirella likes to pursue. The Cunnilingus' talk show has previously discussed the topic of psychic aureole.
Oh, yes, well, something that Bambirella would obviously know a few things about, having her own psychic abilities, but she quickly debunks the psychic aureole.
Exactly, like she's more about the sort of lifestyle. She's more of a glampire.
Very much a glampire.
Yeah, leading to her brand of fun dead media.
Yes, working on an important undead line in order to get her book published, The Ethical Slut.
Yes. On which a movie was based. It's almost impossible to imagine that would be the basis for the movie Bambo First Blood Part 2.
So she takes a page from the book of a very popular men's magazine, a producer man by the man of Hugh Jorgen.
Oh, that's sorry, it took me a second. And I didn't realize that you were talking about Hugh Jorgen. Yeah,
yes,
that's
Hugh
right.
Jorgen, the one who owns the Play Guy magazine.
Yeah, that's right. Who falls under her thrall, and so she becomes co-owner of Thrallmart.
And using that money, she buys a big property and calls it Bambirella's Mansion.
That seemed like a very obvious one.
It is.
But she realizes that for all her success, her messages of personal health and responsibility and evidence-based medicine are not spreading as wide as some of the more salacious topics that she's using as a vehicle. And she realized that there's much in the way that there was the Count Mordocula in her day. Yeah. There are similar forces of evil at work today. Yes. Fox News is not merely a tattoo on an old person. The Fox News is a real thing still out there.
Apparently it survived its creator of Mordocula, and it's now in an even more insidious, widespread form with actually not just one evil power behind it, but actually a whole cabal, if you will, of people who are working towards that same old nefarious purpose.
And she realizes that just like YouTube and just television are not enough to counter this force, these anti-facts people out there.
Anti-factus?
Yeah, exactly. Which triggers her vamp ire.
That's when things go bad for these people.
Yes, because they underestimated her. She is, technically speaking, a Boobermensch.
Oh, very much.
Yeah, now the rest of the book was a very satisfying romp of revenge against these evildoers and defeating misinformation, alternative doctrine with actual science and facts, and making use of powers that regular people don't possess, the ability to enthrall them, the ability to drain people of blood. It was a bit of a shoddy horror kind of book after that.
A shoddy horror picture show. Although I did like the scene at the end where we are led to believe that a new companion she finds by the name of Mona Lottie is the spiritual incarnation of her old friend Alotta Horgasm.
I liked that. I mean, it was a bit of a callback to like Dracula lore, and also suggesting that there will be a world after Bambirella. And I thought that was very wise of her to realize that she was an instrument of improvement and of cleansing, but the world is going to belong to somebody else. Even an immortal has to realize that.
Yes, immortals always have a little bit we are on the stage, but they're not really part of the show. And it's like they move along with it, but they can only react to it. They're not really.
They're not driving the world anymore. That's for the living and for the young. So, like Mona Lotta, she realized that this is one of the people who is going to shepherd in the new world until they hand it over to a new generation themselves. Teach them well and let them lead the way.
Oh yes, I liked it. It was
me
a great
too.
book.
It kind of went all over the place, but I think it held together.
Kind of followed the line about the life of a vampire, and the girl became vampire, became internet celebrity, positive sex movement, all kinds of things like that. Yeah,
I really enjoyed Come As You Are. I think that's such a great like body positive and diverse and inclusive brand.
And I loved the bad guy. I loved Mordocula, who was like he seems a little bit unlikely, but then especially with the whole Fox News thing, that's like it turned out to be an interesting adversary. It was foretelling something that was to come. You know, it's like foretelling of greater evil to yet to come.
It was certainly portentous.
Yes.
How are we going to rate this book?
Oh,
it was a challenge. Okay, so we went
should
over.
Stake our reputation on it.
Very good. So how many centuries did we cross? She started out in the sort of 17th century. It sort of
17th century or something. So
that was about 400 out of 400.
400? Out of 400. Let's see.
We got that pretty easy this time.
Do we have interesting numbers in the 300 range?
We're not at the 420 and 69, so all of our usual go-tos aren't accessible to us. What are we supposed to do with that?
I think we should give it 366. I think that's a good.
That leaves enough room for
activities and getting lots of attention drawn to it at least.
So what do we have in store for our readers next week?
Next week's book is an anthology. It's by Edward G. Talbot, A Funny Pair of Shorts.
Thanks for joining us at Cover by Art, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Kaki.
And I'm Kay, and remember, we only judge a book by its cover.
Yes, I remember that.
Yes, okay, good.
A pair of shorts is not a collection. It's more like a duo, a dilogy, a bilogy.
A twin matinee.
A double feature.
Double feature.
Much like Bambirella has sticking out of her.
Very prominent double features.